Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. The number of COVID-19 infections in the United States has crossed 16 million, while the US deaths are approaching 300,000 with the first vaccine shipments due on Monday. Brazil has reported nearly 44,000 more infections and 686 fatalities in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded over 3,300 cases and 72 fatalities overnight, while the death toll is nearing 8,800. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.6 million lives and infected over 71 million people so far. In India, farmers are set to block the Delhi-Jaipur highway as they threat to intensify their protest against the new farm laws. The rally followed the announcement of a hunger strike on December 14th. Farmers have been protesting for 18 days now, demanding the Indian government to repeal the 3 farm laws. The Afghan government and the Taliban have announced to suspend the peace talks till 5th of January. Kabul's negotiator Nadir Nadiri said talks were suspended to have more consultation on the agenda items. Taliban spokesman Dr. Muhammad Naeem said both sides will start discussing agenda items for the inter-Afghan talks from December 14th. Post-Brexit trade talks have entered their final day in a last-ditch effort to make a breakthrough. However, both sides have warned they are unlikely to reach an agreement. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to speak with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today. In the United States, President Donald Trump's supporters staged protests across the country decrying his loss in the election. A rally in Washington turned violent as pro-Trump Proud Boys brawled with left-wing counter-protesters in downtown. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Supreme Court has termed Trump's campaign's lawsuit seeking to annul 221,000 votes smacks of racism. And in boxing, unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua has knocked out KUBRAT PULEV. Joshua's barrage of uppercuts in the 9th round dropped 39-year-old challenger, wiping him out with a straight right hand. British heavyweight win bolsters hopes for a historic fight with Tyson Fury. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. The number of COVID-19 infections in the United States has crossed 16 million, while the United States deaths are approaching 300,000 with the first vaccine shipments due on Monday. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.6 million lives and infected over 71 million people so far. More about COVID-19 and its vaccine in this report.
More than a year after the first case of COVID-19 was recorded, nations are hoping vaccines might prove to be the panacea. Brazil has unveiled a national vaccination plan with an initial goal of immunizing 1/4 of the population in the first half of 2021. The Brazilian Health Ministry has reported nearly 44,000 more infections and 686 fatalities in the past 24 hours. In the US, where the virus is raging, Pfizer has launched the largest and most complex vaccine distribution project.
We expect 145 sites across all the states to receive vaccine on Monday. another 425 sites on Tuesday, and the final 66 sites on Wednesday, which will complete the initial delivery of the Pfizer orders for vaccine.
Meanwhile, in Europe, Italy is downgrading coronavirus risk levels in 5 regions. French theatres, cinemas and other venues say they will go to court to force the government to allow them to reopen. And in Spain, police controlled thousands of residents who crowded central Madrid ahead of Christmas.
Depende de la calle.
It depends on the street. It is true that there are streets that are so crowded that you think here it seems that the coronavirus has not existed. But then there are areas where you do walk quietly.
In Asia, India has reported nearly 400 COVID-19 deaths and over 30,000 infections overnight, while its caseload has crossed 9.85 million. South Korea has registered a record daily increase in novel coronavirus cases for a second straight day with 1,030 new infections. China reported 24 new cases across the mainland, but the Australian state of New South Wales has recorded a 9th straight day without a local infection.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 72 more people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This has pushed the nationwide death toll to 8,796. Health officials reported 3,369 new infections overnight. Meanwhile, there are more than 46,000 active cases in the country. The Health Ministry says out of over 438,000 countrywide cases, more than 383,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, Pakistan has increased vaccine procurement funds to $250 million and signed agreements with various multinational companies. The vaccine will be available for the masses by the end of 2021. Now in India, farmers are set to block the Delhi-Jaipur highway as they threat to intensify their protests against the new farm laws. The rally followed the announcement of a hunger strike on December 14th. A spokesman for the Farmers Union said they will not settle for anything less than complete repeal of the laws. Police have detained several protesters in attempts to stop them from blocking major highways into New Delhi. The Farmers Unions also condemned accusation that the protests are being hijacked by the Maoist elements. The government and the farmer leaders have held several rounds of talks but failed to end the crisis. Farmers have been protesting for 18 days now, demanding the Indian government to repeal the 3 farm laws. Now in Doha, the negotiating teams of Kabul and the Taliban say the next round of peace talks has been delayed till January 5th. They say the decision was taken to make time for more consultations on the agenda. Taliban spokesperson Muhammad Naeem said both sides exchanged an initial list of agenda items. He said the two sides will start discussing agenda items for the inter-Afghan talks from December 14. Afghan negotiator Nadir Nadiri also said that they have agreed to conduct more consultations, but he did not mention whether the talks will be convened in Doha or somewhere else. This comes after National Security Advisor Hamdullah Mohib said Kabul is ready to hold talks with the Taliban in any part of the country they suggest. Earlier this month, negotiators agreed on procedural rules for the talks. Now, in the United States, President Donald Trump's supporters have staged protests across the country decrying his loss in the election. A rally in Washington turned violent as pro-Trump Proud Boys brawled with the left-wing counter-protesters in downtown. The two groups shouted insults at each other across the street near McPherson Square, with some setting off fireworks. Police in riot gear moved in quickly to break up the sporadic clashes. President Trump acknowledged his supporters in the Capitol by having his helicopter fly in a ring above the protest site. Protests were also planned in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. Meanwhile, Wisconsin Supreme Court termed Trump's campaign's lawsuit seeking to annul 221,000 votes smacks of racism. Trump campaign has suffered a string of defeats in its legal bid to overturn election results. Well, now moving on, post-Brexit trade talks have entered their final day in the last-ditch effort to make a breakthrough. However, both sides have warned they are unlikely to reach an agreement. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to speak with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today. Government say Johnson is clear that any deal must respect fundamental position that the United Kingdom will be a sovereign nation on January 1st. Local media says Britain ministers have warned supermarkets to stockpile food amid possibilities of a no-deal Brexit. It said cabinet ministers are planning a multi-billion pounds bailout package for industries hardest hit by a no-deal Brexit. Now, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the European Union must discard pressure it is facing from Greece and Cyprus. In a video address, he said it was wrong for Ankara's relations with the bloc to fall victim to the tricks of one or two states. This comes after Brussels agreed to impose limited sanctions on Turkish individuals over an energy exploration dispute with Greece and Cyprus. Earlier, Erdogan said sanctions imposed by the bloc will damage both sides. He called on European politicians to solve problems through dialogue and cooperation. Over in the Middle East, Israel says Bhutan has become the latest country to establish diplomatic relations with it. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the agreement follows years of secret communication. A signing ceremony was held between the Israeli and Bhutanese ambassadors to India. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on Twitter that the deal was an additional fruit of the peace agreements. Bhutan has full diplomatic ties with only 53 countries, a list that does not include the United States, China and Russia. The move comes 2 days after Israel and Morocco agreed to normalize ties in a deal brokered by the United States. Now, thousands of Israelis took to the streets in Jerusalem in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They slammed his indictment on charges of corruption and his mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The crowds rallied outside Netanyahu's official residence. They blew whistles, waved signs and flags calling for his resignation.
I'm here in order to make a change. We have a prime minister who's divisive, who is splitting the country, who is ruining our economy, and who is undermining the structure of democracy.
Well, Israel has reported over 335,000 infections and almost 3,000 deaths due to the pandemic so far. Now, moving on to Nigeria's northwestern Katsina state, where the military has exchanged fire with gunmen who have kidnapped hundreds of school children. Officials say about 800 students are missing. Police said the gangs armed with AK-47 stormed the government-signed secondary school. The governor of the state ordered immediate closures of all boarding secondary schools in the state. Nigeria's President Buhari condemned the attack. He said the security agencies have swung into action and were on the trail of the bandits. Last month, scores of farmers were killed by the ISIS in Borno State massacre. Now, in Venezuela, the opposition has concluded a popular consultation to renounce President Nicolas Maduro's government. The consultation proposed by Juan Guaido kicked off virtually but ended with in-person participation. With 87% of responses viewed, the opposition reported a total participation of just under 6.5 million people. More than 3 million people voted in person, with some 2.4 million online. The opposition said about 845,000 Venezuelans abroad took part in the process. Although aimed at exhibiting a broad rejection of Maduro, the consultation does not offer a clear path towards a change of government. Meanwhile, government says 5.2 million Venezuelans voted in the opposition boycotted parliamentary elections. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, thousands of people are bracing for floods in Australia's subtropical east coast. Beaches are closed, with authorities urging people to sandbag their homes and avoid driving. New South Wales and Queensland states are in the midst of the first La Nina rainstorm of the season. The area received rainfall as high as 475 millimeters in the previous hours. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued a severe weather warning for the area. Just a week earlier, nearby Fraser Island was evacuated due to bushfires, a sign of the erratic weather. La Nina weather pattern typically features strong rain combined with climate change. Now in Mexico, archaeologists have unearthed new sections of a famous Aztec tower of human skulls. National Institute of Anthropology and History says a further 119 skulls have been uncovered. Details in this report.
Mexican archaeologists have found remains of 119 more people, including women and several children, in a centuries-old Aztec tower of skulls. Known as Huezampatli, the skull rack dates back to the 1400s, which is located beneath the center of Mexico City.
We are seeing the external facade of the skull tower on the east side of the corresponding Aztec structure, which corresponds to the first stage of construction. The skulls were exhibited on the fence and were joined with mortar.
The tower, approximately 5 meters in diameter, was first discovered 5 years ago. In total, more than 600 skulls have now been found at the site.
We have been working since 2015, and up to the present day, we have been monitoring rehabilitation work on the building.
The tower's original discovery surprised anthropologists who expected to find the skulls of young male warriors, but they also come across the crania of women and children, raising questions about human sacrifice in Aztec Empire.
Well, now a Chinese space capsule bringing back the first moon rocks in more than 4 decades has begun its return trip to Earth. It spends about 6 days in lunar orbit. The China National Space Administration said the Chang'e 5 lunar probe left the orbit by activating 4 engines for about 22 minutes. The mission landed on the moon earlier this month and collected about 2 kilograms of samples. The return capsule is expected to land in northern China in the Inner Mongolia region in mid-December. The samples would be the first brought back since the Soviet Union's Luna 24 probe in 1976. The 3rd Hainan Island International Film Festival has concluded in Sanya city of South China's Hainan province. The festival received over 4,000 entries from 114 countries and regions. Details in this report.
189 films from 60 countries and regions have been selected for cinemas across Hainan. 2020 China Fights, a 4K resolution documentary film made by China Media Group about the country's battle against COVID-19 epidemic, made its debut during the film festival. Producer of the documentary said the film reviewed the touching scenes during the epidemic through the perspectives of 3 ordinary people. Wang Xinjian said it shows a medic supporting Hubei, a volunteer, and a girl of the post-90s generation in Wuhan. He said through the scenes, people can feel the warmth of the world and the strength of China. A series of activities including a film panorama, venture capital conferences, forums and summits were held during the film festival. After the closing ceremony of the film festival, the Island Carnival will continue to tour and many excellent films will be shown on Hainan Island.
Now in boxing, unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua has knocked out KUBRAT PULEV. Joshua's barrage of uppercuts in the 9th round dropped 39-year-old challenger, wiping him out with a straight right hand. Joshua's exhibition of power and patience was witnessed by 1,000 fans at the Wembley Arena. Having suffered a defeat against Andy Ruiz Jr. in December, the English boxer was sponge perfect against PULEV. The Bulgarian briefly tried to smile and roar in the face of adversity, but to no avail. British heavyweight Swin bolsters hopes for a historic fight with Tyson Fury. In the 2020 opening of the Snowboard World Cup, Czech Republic's Easter Ledecka and Italian Roland Fischnailer have claimed wins at Italy's famed Cortina.
With no fans in attendance due to COVID-19 restrictions, Olympic PGS champ Ledecka outdueled German Selena Jorg in the women's big final by 0.86 of a second to earn the victory. German Ramona Theresia Hofmeister took the final step of the women's podium with a defeat of Cheyenne Locke in the 3rd place race. On the men's side, it was home favourite Fischnailer taking his 4th parallel giant slalom win in a row with his 0.45 of a second victory over countryman Aaron March. Austrian Benjamin Karl narrowly defeated Italian Mirko Felicetti in the 3rd place race to fill out the men's podium. The FIA Snowboard World Cup now heads to Carezza in Italy for next weekend's PGS event.
In the English Premier League, Dwight Gale scored the winner for Newcastle as they beat West Brom 2-1 at St James Park. Gale came off the bench to find the net with a header 8 minutes from stoppage time. Newcastle took the lead after just 20 seconds, which was equalised by West Brom after the break. In another fixture, Aston Villa narrowly beat Wolverhampton Wanderers by 1-0. Villa snatched victory in the final moments of the game thanks to Anwar El Ghazi's goal from a penalty. Bayern Munich's treble-winning Robert Lewandowski has joined Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi as the three finalists for the Best FIFA Men's Player award.
World Soccer's governing body announced Lewandowski was top scorer for Bayern in the Champions League with 15 goals. The body said Lewandowski was also top scorer in Bundesliga with 34 goals. His former teammate and current Liverpool midfielder Thiago Alcantara was also nominated. Lewandowski's coach Hansi Flick is one of the three finalists for the Men's Coach of the Year. The category also includes Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp and Leeds United's Marcelo Bielsa. The Best FIFA Women's Player award will go to one of Olympique Lyonnais Wendy Renard, Manchester City defender Lucy Bronze or Chelsea forward Pernille Harder. Meanwhile, Chelsea manager Emma Hayes, Lyon's Jean-Luc Vasseur and New England manager Serena Wayman are the three finalists for the Women's Coach of the Year award. The awards will be presented at a ceremony on December 17th.
With that, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.